So what I do when I sit down with the drum set, first thing is you got to get your snare at the right height. So make sure that it's centered and that all of your toms, everything are in a good place. But start with your snare because that's home base for us. And is it at a height where you're not going to be doing rim shots the whole time? And is it in a position where when I just strike it, it's very easy to hit the very center of it. And then I start with just positioning. So then the rack tom, is it at the right angle? Is it too far away? Adjust that so that it's at a good position. Rotate over, same thing with the toms. My far floor tom is going to be a little bit further than some people would normally do because realize if I rotate, I just want to be able to hit the center of it. I don't want to have to pull in or go out. And then same thing with your cymbals, because if your cymbals are oriented in a way that isn't helpful, it's going to be hard for the mics, but also just for you to get the right volumes and things. So make sure your ride is at a level where it's not too high, because if it's really high, you're going to be crashing it all the time, and that's going to be too loud. Bring it down so that you can ping it and that it's nice and accessible. Because really, you're probably going to have a high tom and then 2 floor toms. You can set that ride kind of in between so that you ride, floor tom, floor tom. And then you can focus in on tuning them, making sure that the heads, first off, just aren't loose. If they're loose, they're going to sound like a piece of paper probably. So tap around, see how the 3 toms sound together, and then if they do not resonate well, focus in on that one, and most likely it'll be the lugs that are closest to you. You can start tuning those, just turning it up a little bit and tapping it until it resonates. At least get them to a point where all the heads resonate. And then once I've done that, then I've got my drum set in a good place, and then I'll move over to the metronome and in-ears. And so metronome, pretty straightforward. I'll just set up all the times. If we have it in playback, many times I'll still program the tempos in the Dr. Beats just to ensure that if we have an epic fail and the playback goes down, I've still got that tempo in the metronome in case I want to fire that up. So I've got all of the tempos for the worship service in the metronome. I make sure that the little trigger, if you've got a trigger for the metronome, little pedal, that's close to the hi-hat so that I can quickly tap on that to switch to the next song. And then I'll move over to the avioms and pretty much just turn everything down so that I can start by turning up, making sure that the metronome is in a good place, and the drums. You want to make sure that you can hear your drums well enough, because if it's not loud enough, you're going to beat them too hard. So make sure that you can hear the drums, you can hear the metronome above everything else, and then bring everything else in. You're going to want to hear the bass guitar, and you're going to want to hear the keys and the worship leader. I think everything else is optional, but bring those in so maybe you can hear them a little bit, but they don't have to be. With our avioms especially, if you have everything up, if everything's playing, it starts to mess with the volumes of everything anyway, and it starts to get weird. So you're better off choosing and prioritizing the things you need to hear. And as a drummer, you need to hear the metronome so that you can lock onto that. And if you feel the band is pulling it forward, you can bring them back because you're locked in. So make sure that you can hear that metronome. And then if I hear an acoustic guitar or electric guitar or something that is pulling me off during rehearsal because they're kind of moving off of metronome, I don't have to tell them, but I do turn them down, because they're going to make it so the band doesn't stay on the metronome because they're pulling me faster or slower, and I need to keep the band locked in. So if you can tell something's pulling you off, try turning that down a little bit so that you continue to stay locked in with the metronome. I think that's it. All right.